Samson Itodo, you and your friends in the civil society community are planning to occupy. The last time we heard that is occupy in what year was that? We know how things turned. Has it gotten to that point to occupy National Assembly?
Well, I think it's gotten to that point, but let's make a clarification. It does appear that there are several protests that are planned tomorrow by different interest groups. The one that we are part of is a protest that is organized and led by Action Aid and the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room with other actors. So that's the march or protest that we are part of, that led by Action Aid at the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. There are other sort of protests. It is important to make this clear distinction because we're at a time when you have different groups, some whom you may not know what's their intention. But the intention for this march organized by Action Aid and Civil Society Situation Room is to further, put pressure on the Senate to do what is right and what is in line with the wishes and aspirations of Nigerians. So when the Senate passed its own version of the bill, between Wednesday till date, there have been 3 conflicting narratives in the public space. The first one was that the Senate passed electronic transmission of result, or real-time electronic transmission of result. That's the first narrative. The second narrative is that the Senate didn't pass electronic transmission of results. Instead, it maintained the provision in section 65 to the effect that the procedure for transmission shall be determined by INEC. The third conflicting narrative is that the Senate did pass electronic transmission. However, it removed the word real time and then also a qualifier which is called transfer, because what was contained in the bill is transmit and not transfer. These are conflicting narratives. They are conflicting narratives because in the first place, the Senate missed an opportunity to effectively communicate to Nigerians exactly what's its position. It's good and heartwarming to hear that the Senate is convening in an emergency plenary meeting. When they left for recess last week, they didn't have any intentions of convening an emergency meeting because the conference committee was given till 24th. But they have now called for an emergency plenary. We don't know, because we're only speculating what's the agenda. But we're only guessing that the only plausible agenda will be to approve and adopt the vote and proceedings. And the message is just clear. In approving the vote and proceedings, which is part of legislative practice and procedure, it is important that those provisions regarding, 1, real-time electronic transmission of results are contained and reflected, because senators have said that was exactly what they voted, and that was the content of the bill that was tabled before the Senate for consideration. The second is around downloadable PVCs. In 2023, over 6.2 million Nigerians could not collect their PVCs. If you check the results of elections in 2023 and subsequent elections, the margin of victory or lead between 2 candidates is lower than 6.2 million. So the number of people who didn't collect their PVCs is substantial enough, even if you don't justify it by virtue of the numbers. But why shouldn't a citizen who is registered and had their names on the voters register, why shouldn't they cast their vote? We need to protect the right to vote, and that's why the bill says downloadable PVCs, either those that are missing or those that are issued. That way you increase, voter participation. The third one was about the time frames and timelines that were altered. When the House of Reps passed its own version of the bill in December last year, some of these provisions that the Senate seem have mutilated or changed was passed by the House of Reps. So it is disturbing that the Senate chose this path. Well, let's wait. There is an opportunity on Tuesday. Let's see what the votes and proceedings say. But from what we understand, these conflicting narratives really suggest that there is something amiss, and that's why citizens are concerned, and they are calling on their legislators to take decisions that protect the integrity of the 2027 elections.
Something. It all started from last year, right?
Yeah.
When there is suspicion that what exactly is wrong, why the Red Chamber is not beaming its light on and possibly trying to pass, just like the Green Chamber did, the House of Representatives. They went on recess, the year went, and now the new year, and there's pressure mounting on them, especially because of the timeline. Yeah. For INEC seems to be waiting for the passage, and those who believe that INEC does not have to wait. INEC, there is a subsisting law that says you should, 360 days before the next election, you should be able to announce the election, which we're still waiting for INEC to take that decision. But it all came to say, we've senators sat on 2 different executive sessions to deliberate. And those who are asking the question, why going to an executive session over this matter? And and this is not the first time, something. You will remember that there are a lot of controversial bills and laws that have been passed. PIB was very popular. That people will say, what version do you have? What version has been passed? Yeah. You know, the mutilation, whatever you remember, even the the amendment to the electoral law also had the same problem. Law. So how the lawmakers now think that what they said on the floor and what is being passed out there are 2 different things. And I'll come to the nitty-gritty of the technicalities as mentioned by the Senate President, and we'll look into that. What do you think could have caused that level of suspicion, and the fact that senators are now disagreeing, and their voice since they agreed on it, and even Senate President said, we did not remove transmission of results.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that accounts for this is the power that technology has to limit human interference and deepen the transparency of the electoral process. I think it is important to educate the public that technology is not a silver bullet, that technology does have its own vulnerabilities. But what you do about those vulnerabilities is you institute mechanisms that limit the extent of vulnerability, so you prevent any form of attack, because there is no system in the world that is insulated from penetration. So let's get that clear. But in this particular instance, what the political class seem to be scared of is the power that electronic transmission of results has. What does it do? It enhances the transparency of the process. It also ensures it has a deterrent effect, because at the lowest and perhaps the weakest link of our entire results management process is at the collation level. That is where results are manipulated. And what INEC did by introducing electronic transmission, whether it's IREV, is the fact that after voting at the polling unit, collate the results, enter the results on the result sheets, and then upload it, on a portal defined by INEC. That way, it enhances accessibility, so that when it goes to the collation center, everyone already sees the result. So if the collation officer is trying to alter the figures, the authentic results are already out there. And this is what, some politicians are scared of because of its capacity. It worked in 2023, where some of the legislators who are in the National Assembly are beneficiaries of electronic transmission of results. It worked in Nasarawa. It worked in Zamfara. It worked in Abia. There are lots of elections where this particular mode of transmission did deepen the integrity of the process. And I think that any politician in Nigeria who is not scared, of e-transmission, right, should support this. Because if you have electronic transmission of results, it does not just benefit the ruling party alone. It doesn't benefit the opposition alone. It benefits our democracy, so that everyone, will see that yes, this outcome is a reflection of the will of the people. That's what Nigerians are asking for.
So, and it just reminds me, we'll be going on a break now. But something that was never done in the history of our elections and on television and in broadcasting in Nigeria was a partnership China's television had with Yaga Africa and your partners, where we had real-time election result per local government in a few states that we had. We had in Ekiti and we had in Osun State. Real-time, we had result on the screen, and we were analyzing and looking at the pattern right there on the screen, and that never happened. It brought a lot of viewing excitement for the average person, and the integrity seems to end up until the disaster happened. Now, so the question here is, we're going to break. When we come back, we're going to be finding out. I have 4 technical areas which are the fears of the proponents of not extreme or use of transmission of results, but by the virtue of some of the knowledge one has garnered in election. I think you and your colleagues also, Samson, should fight that our result should be taken to local government for collation. There are different layers. The polling units result collation, the RA collation, the local government collation, the state and the national. So a lot of us have discovered that most of the rigging happens at the RA level.
Yes.
Polling units, you only can rig at the polling unit because the agents are there. RA level, darkness is already coming, and people manipulate the result. Whatever you have manipulated, you take to the LG, you can't salvage the situation because it's already rigged at the RA level. But those of us who think and know that those things that are done in the dark is the RA. And I'm thinking that politicians and civil society should be fighting that RA level result should be taken to the LG. That's my own gift to
we can debate.
Absolutely. Practical experience. But we're going to break, everyone. It's a day of rage and agitation on the streets of Abuja tomorrow. Civil society organization, politicians will be mounting an Occupy NAS protest to impose on or to make sure that the National Assembly members see reasons behind the debate on electronic transmission of results. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. A former Minister of Youth and Sports, a lawyer, and a member of the ADC, Mr. Solomon Dalong, has been speaking with us alongside Mr. Samson Itodo, who is a lawyer, Executive Director of Yaga Africa, and Elections and Democracy Development Advocates. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time tonight on the program. And that what I said, a lot of people who may not understand, practically speaking, because what people see, they see polling unit result, and at the end of the day, the final collation. But there are processes that and for some of us who have monitored this process, when you hear there is a massive manipulation of the result, different from what you saw at the polling unit, it is the RA that most of this happened. You know what happened at the RA? Media, election observers, civil society organization, party agents are present at the polling unit. All eyes are there. People, they discover that there's a lethargy and people are tired. Everybody leaves once the polling unit result has been taken. So when you take the result to the RA, there's no media. Civil society is not there. Party agents are probably not there. So when you now go to local government, that's where you now find some media organizations and some civil society organization monitoring. And people are now worried. How come? When did the result change anyways? I'm just emphasizing the fact that RA is a major gap that people should look. If any politician, and those who rig elections were hearing me and they will be very angry that I'm leaking the secret, that is where most of the rigging happens. Politicians in opposition and those who are in the ruling party take note of it, and also in the civil society. But Samson, let's talk to the technicalities of the argument, and there are those arguments about the e-transmission of the result. And if you hear those who are in the ruling party, the lawmakers who are there, who says, look, take caution about this e-transmission. First, they mention issue of poor network coverage. Do we have what it takes to we have about 120-something thousand polling units across the country. 174,000. Now, poor network coverage, where in a lot of villages and a lot of places there are no coverage. That's the first argument. Second, cybersecurity risk. If Russia can manipulate election, the allegations coming from the United States, anyone sitting in one island can take over an election umpire website has been seized. It has happened in elections in Nigeria before. The third argument is issue of infrastructure. Do we have the capability, technically speaking, in being able to achieve that on that day when all the activities is happening on that day? The risk of legal dispute. So if you said transmission of result and you are not able to do it, are you going to be disenfranchising some people? These are some of the arguments. Does it make sense?
Well, first, let me pay tribute to the Minister Solomon Dalong. He was my lecturer in the university. He actually taught Cynthia Mbamalu and I.
Oh, wow.
In the university. So I'm paying special tribute to him. But to come to your question about those reasons, listen, those are valid concerns. And what we are saying is we're not discountenancing those. We're very mindful of that. But let's take them one after the other. When you talk about connectivity, and I heard, some of the leaders in the National Assembly talk about weather connectivity. Sheung, this is not the first time that we're having this conversation about electronic transmission of results. Yeah. INEC did extensive work, on electronic transmission of results. In fact, produced a discussion paper. In 2018, INEC constituted a joint committee on electronic transmission of results, comprising folks from NCC and INEC. Your guest this week, on one of the shows, a former INEC commissioner, was the co-chair of that particular committee. Do you know what the committee found out? It's contained in INEC's discussion paper that 93% of polling units have coverage. 93% of polling units. In 2023, do you know the number of polling units that were dark spots? There were less than 16,000. There were somewhere around 15,000 or so polling units. So when we talk about penetration, let's be fair to our country, that we've actually made significant progress. 93% official INEC document is that 93% of polling units have coverage. In fact, this is not the first time we're transmitting data. We did that in 2023. And what happened? The fact that there was a technical glitch did not mean that results did not come, from polling units. So I don't think that argument holds water. The second point about cybersecurity risks. Yes, when you think about technology, and I've mentioned that technologies do have their vulnerabilities. You have artificial intelligence, you have all forms of, attempted intrusion. The bigger question is what defense mechanisms do you have in place? And this is a country that produces tech experts that are courted, and poached by the best companies in the world. And you think that we don't have the defense mechanism in Nigeria to prevent any intrusion? What makes us think that Russia or any other country would have the capacity, to intrude and try to alter, some of our... How come, even with the accreditation, that whilst in 2023 there were attempts to hack, were they successful? I'm not saying that there aren't systems that are not insulated from intrusion. Yes, they are, but the big question is, what systems do we have? And that's why you subject your tech systems to different tests. Penetration tests, you subject them to robustness tests. There are lots of tests that you subject to see whether those systems are capable of withstanding any attacks. You talk about infrastructure. Again, for heaven's sake, the Tinubu administration have invested so much. If you speak, even to the Minister of Digital Communications, you can see the kinds of reforms that are actually in place. So I think we're also being unfair to ourselves when we say we don't have, the infrastructure to transmit results. It is clear that the folks who are advancing this argument would need, to listen more to the developments that we have recorded as a country. INEC, who is the election management body, have said that 93% of polling units, have coverage, and they transmitted accreditation data. They transmitted, results using the BVAS in 2023. So why is 2027 different?
My big question here, Samson, and we know how this turned really very awry on the floor of the House of Representatives. If you remember, in 2022, where before before it was
exactly
this present Electoral Act was passed. And I'm asking my question, the practical question is that because you look at it strategically speaking, what we want to guard against is one person or any politician or any agent of evil or any devil who sits somewhere and manipulate election result. That is what we're trying to work against. And I'm not sure everybody has that agenda. But for those of us who are progressive in mind, that is what we think, that our elections should be free, fair, and there must be accountability in it. But the question is, will e-transmission of result assure or guarantee that rigging will go?
It will guarantee that it will limit human interference if there are conditions. If one, the way it is construed and drafted in the Act, it ensures that it covers the field and provides some level of flexibility. You know, that's one. The legal framework needs to be in place. Secondly, if INEC provides clarity in the processes for the results transmission process, and ensures that Nigerians totally understand that, especially the stakeholders in the process. The third is, at the end of the day, election boils down to the personal integrity of the individual who is manning those systems. Whether it is manual or it is electronic, it boils down to the personal integrity of that individual.
We're due for another break quickly, something, and I'd love to bring Mr. Dowlong into the conversation before we close. The experience of the 2023 litigation, election litigation, came to the point of the uselessness of IRF. As far as the defense, he doesn't serve any form of defense.
Even though I don't agree with the court on that position.
But that's a reality.
No, because the court...
I'm saying that was a position of the court.
The problem, Sean, is this issue about the legality of INEC guidelines. Today, if you check our jurisprudence, we are unsure what is the fate of INEC's guidelines. Is INEC guidelines part of the legal framework for elections?
Is it a law or not? Is it a body of law? It's part of the body of law.
Of basic administrative law is that a subsidiary legislation has got a legal effect. But the court on one hand says you cannot use the guidelines to introduce electronic transmission of rules. And on the basis of that the court held that...
But if it's passed, will it empower IREF?
This is why in today's Nigeria, Nigerians are clamoring for clear provisions in the Principal Act that provides for real-time electronic transmission of results, so that it won't be subject to different kinds of interpretation that provides a leeway for people to manipulate, exercise their discretion in a way that they undermine the votes of Nigeria.
Let's take another break, everyone, and we'll come back to round up. Thank you so much, everyone. We're totally out of time, but Mr. Dowlong, just a 30 seconds final comment on this conversation. Where do we go from here?
Let me acknowledge the kind tributes from my one of my respected students, and I thank God that destiny crossed our path. Each time he's mentioned, I feel fulfilled in life. He demonstrated these tendencies for the love of democracy, even as a student. Sam, God will bless you. You see, where do we go from here is the question that we have been asking so many times. In your conversation with Sam, the missing link in all you have discussed, whether technicalities or the law, is that there is no political will to protect the integrity of our elections. Once there is the political will, all these issues that are raised will not exist.
All right.
So these tendencies, these tendencies...
We're totally out of time, Mr. Dowlong. We need to go, but thank you so much. Something, 10 seconds and we head out.
I think INEC should go ahead and issue the timetable for the 2027 elections. And when the National Assembly meets on Tuesday, please ensure that real-time electronic transmission of results is part and adopted in the votes and proceedings.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We're totally out of time. That's our show for today, man. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm sure I'll come God bless you.